And now we would like to invite you to make some puppets with us. There are a lot of things to think about when you're making a puppet show. There were a lot of animals in this story, and I tried to think, what kind of shapes would I need to make these animals? I also thought about, how do these animals usually move? How can I help the puppets do that? I also thought about the color, because there's so many colors in this wonderful book. Let's ask our cast what they think about the shape and movement of a certain kind of other animal, the caterpillar. Cast, does anyone have an idea of how you would describe the shape of a caterpillar? Yeah.
They're long and round.
Long and round. Anything else?
They also have curves.
They have curves. Cool. What about how they move?
They sort of reach and pull, make little arcs.
Ah, cool. I see what you're doing with your hand there. That's cool. Any other ways you would describe it?
They move really slowly.
Awesome. I think it gives us a lot of information. We can start making them now. Let's use those cool things we noticed about the shape and movement of a caterpillar to help us make a caterpillar puppet. Let's get the things we need. Okay, we're getting ready to make our first paper puppet. And the first thing we'll need to do is make sure we have some materials. I put a picture here and a list to help you figure out what you might need. We're going to make it mostly out of paper. So getting a piece of paper that's about the size that comes out of a printer is a good size. Blank paper usually works the best. You'll also want a scissors, a pencil, and for the coloring, some markers. You might see in the picture that there's more than one kind of green, more than one kind of red, and more than one kind of brown. If you only have one of each kind, it's okay. But if you have more, you can use those to help add some great texture to your puppet. You can also use crayons or colored pencils if you prefer. You'll also need a straight edge so you can draw a couple of straight lines. Finally, you'll want a glue stick or a stapler or some tape. Now, if you need to pause this video at any time so that you can go get your things, do that and then just start it up again when you're ready. Also, this video will be available so you can watch it all the way through and then rewind and then start from there. All right, we have our materials and we're going to get started. First, I wanted to show you how what we're going to make is a little bit like something I made for this show. And that is the paper spring. It's a bit of puppet technology, which is just a way of saying a tool puppeteers can use when they are making their puppets. If you look right at the neck of our black sheep, you'll notice an interesting shape with lots of folds. That is the paper spring. We're going to use that same idea to make the body of our caterpillar. Let's make it. Right, so first you'll need your piece of paper, your pencil, and your straight edge. We're going to draw two straight lines along the long side of the paper. It can be about an inch wide if you have a ruler. Or if you want to estimate, you can hold up one or two fingers and make a little mark on the paper on each side and then connect it with your straight edge. You'll draw the first line and the second line, and it should look something like this. Just a reminder, if you want to pause to catch up, do that now. Cool, now we get to do some coloring. Before we're being a little careful with our straight lines, now we don't have to be careful at all. We can use one or two or three colors of green and cover and go over the lines. You don't have to stay inside. You can use patterns. You can just do scribbles. You can do it however you want. You'll want to be sure, though, to color both sides of your paper. This will be important when we make the body of the caterpillar. After that, you're going to cut out those strips of paper on the pencil line that you drew. If you need some help with cutting, you can pause the video and ask a friend or an adult nearby to help you with the cutting part. When you're finished cutting them out, it should look something like this. There's color on both sides all the way up and down both of your strips of paper. Next, we're going to start to assemble the body. So to put it together, you're going to start by making an L shape with your 2 strips of paper. You'll notice that in the picture that you see on the screen, there's a little bit hanging off the edge on both sides. That's just right. We just want a little bit hanging off. Next, you'll take the bottom of the L and fold it to the other side. I used my fingers to hold down the vertical piece of paper so it didn't move. When you're finished, the L will be going the other way. Next, you're going to reach for that top strip of paper and fold it down. So it looks a little bit like that. And you're going to keep doing this and doing it and doing it and doing it until you have just a little square of paper left. And so now, if you gently open this piece of paper you folded, you'll discover you have a paper spring. Paper springs are really cool and they can be used for so many things. We're going to use it for our caterpillar body, but you can think, what else could I use this cool shape for? It moves in an interesting way. You can make a pop-up book. Maybe you can make a bracelet. Maybe you could make, what do you think? But you know what's missing? The head. I liked to use my piece of paper along with my paper spring to make the head. And I put it down next to it so I could estimate about how big and what size and what shape of head I would like to make. I drew a circle for the head. I drew some ovals for the eyes, and I put a couple zigzag lines for the antenna. I colored them with a marker, and then I cut them out. Then we need to attach the head to the body. Again, you can use a glue stick, or you might want to try and staple it. Or you might have tape, and you can make a little loop with the tape, put it on the back of the head, and press it against the body to attach it. Let's check in with our friends from the show and see the puppets they made using these same instructions. Bring them out! It's so cool how they're all kind of the same, but also kind of different. Some have purple antenna, some have brown. Oh, and they move really cool too. Awesome. Thank you all. If you have some paper left over, you could make some grass for your puppet friend to walk around in. All you have to do is finish coloring it all the way green. About halfway down it, you want to make a fold like you see in the left-hand picture. Then you can carefully use the scissors to cut out the blades of grass on the vertical part. And there you'll have some grass for your puppet to walk around in. That was really fun making that puppet together. And so we thought, let's make a second kind of puppet. This time, I think we can use a different idea. This time we'll use the puppet technology of joints. And a joint is a place where the puppet parts can either rotate or move, kind of like the joints in your body, like your elbow or your knee. And we're going to look at how we can use those joints to make a caterpillar. Here, you can see our dog puppet. And there's a joint by its front leg that helps that leg move. Our dog puppet only needed one joint to be able to work in the way we needed for our show. But I think for a caterpillar to really move like a caterpillar, it might need more than one joint. How many joints do you see? To To make this new kind of puppet, we're going to use some of the same materials and tools as before, but we will also use some new things. For the main body of the puppet, we're going to need something a little bit more stiff than regular paper. So I chose to use an old cereal box. Also, you will need 5 brads. In the picture below, you will see them right next to the drinking glass. We'll talk more about them later. You'll need 2 bamboo skewers, or you can use popsicle sticks. The drinking glass is really just used for its nice round shape, about 2 to 3 inches across, something you can trace around. Lastly, we needed something to make a small hole. I chose a screw because it can, with its pointy tip, make a small little hole. If you don't have one, it's okay. You could use a hole punch, or you could use your scissors if an adult or an older friend is nearby. You'll need some of the same things too: a pencil, the scissors, all of your colors and markers, and some tape and a glue stick. Let's get started. I mentioned before that we were going to trace around the drinking glass to make our circles. You'll need to do it about 5 or 6 times, depending on how big you want your caterpillar to be. Choose one of those circles and color it with your red markers. Again, I like using more than one version of red because it makes the coloring a little bit more exciting. And you can still go outside of the lines. Just try not to color inside the other circles, because we want to make them completely green. And you can use zigzags or scribbles, however you want. When you're all finished coloring, you'll want to cut out the edge on your pencil line. This is a good time to ask for help if you need it. Feel free to pause the video if you like. Here you can see I have all of my circles cut out, and I've put them in order that I like to make my caterpillar puppet. I also took out my brads to help join those different circles together. Here's how we're going to do that. First, you'll need to overlap your segments. So that means putting one just a little bit over top of another. Then you'll need to find your thing that makes a small little hole. Here you can see I used the screw, and you're going to push down into your circle. That should make 2 small little holes. Get your brads ready. We're going to put one through the first circle, and then we're going to put it through the second circle. Right now, you can see that the brad is still kind of pointing up and down. So to make sure it doesn't move, we'll turn it over, open up the parts of the brad, and flatten it out. You'll need to repeat this step until all of your circles are joined. Another good time to pause the video if you want. Awesome. Now we have our segments of our caterpillar joined together, and it might already be pretty cool to move around. So now we need to add some of the face of the caterpillar. You can use some of your extra paper from before, or some of your extra cereal box. Draw some eyes, draw some antenna, and glue them on. Now it's time to use another kind of puppet technology: controls. Controls are how a puppeteer moves the puppet. A lot of times with rod puppets, we have small little sticks like these bamboo skewers, or popsicle sticks if you have them. If you don't have them, it's fine. You can still make the puppet move in a cool way just using your hands. But if you have them, here's how you do it. You turn the puppet over and you tape the control to the front and to the back segment of your caterpillar. I chose to tape mine so they come out the top of the caterpillar, because I've seen a lot of caterpillars moving around on the ground. So I thought it might be cool to have myself above and the puppet below me. Just like that. Once you have your puppet assembled and the controls are on, You are ready to find out how it can move. Here, I moved the back to the front and then stretched out the head, and then moved the back of the puppet to the front and then stretched out the head. And it gave a cool movement. But there are other movements you can find too. What can you find with your puppet? Here's another thing you can do. Like I said, I put my puppet's controls above the puppet. But you can also attach them below the puppet if you prefer. For this kind of puppet show, the puppeteer could be hidden below the puppet. There is one more kind of puppet that we'll invite you to make with us. This one is called a found object puppet. So for this kind, the materials really depend on what you have in your house. Take a look around. As you look around, you can think, does anything I see remind me of the shape of a caterpillar? Then, if you find something, check with an adult and make sure that it's okay for you to use as a puppet. Here's one thing that I found, a paper egg carton. I saw the lines of repeating bumps and it reminded me of the different sections of a caterpillar. Here is how I made this puppet. I started off with my egg carton, and then I took off the extra bits, the lid and the flap. A scissors will help you do this. And if it's too tricky for you to cut, you can always ask someone else, like an adult, to help you out. Then I turned the puppet in the way that you see here. And the parts that kind of stick up like little mountains, I cut them off because we don't need them for our caterpillar. Next, I separated the two lines of bumps. So you could really make two caterpillars if you want. My next step was cleaning up the edges so it looked even more like a caterpillar and a little bit less like an egg carton. The paper is really good for the egg carton because you can color it, and that is what I did next. You can also tell that I used some extra paper that I had lying around to cut out some eye shapes and antenna shapes. I colored them and glued them on. You can make puppets with lots of things, and here are some kids made already. What's next? Take your puppet for a walk. Or you could put on a little show with your puppet. And you could take a video of it and share it with your friends or your neighbors and your family. Or you could take a cool photo like this one. We will tell you how to share them with us at the end of this video. Our show had a bunch of different kinds of animals that we made puppets for. Are there other animals you would like to make? Here's how you might start to do that. Think about what is inspiring to you. Is it looking at animals in nature, in a park, or on a hike? Maybe you like looking at art. Maybe you just want to use your imagination. Next, think about the shapes that are a part of that animal and how you want that animal to move. You can then use some of the puppet technology that we learned today, like a paper spring or a joint or controls, to help you make the puppet move in a really interesting way. You might also think of new ways to do that. Remember, some helpful materials can be paper, cereal boxes, markers, scissors, pencils, sticks, egg cartons. There's so many things. Have fun exploring. Thank you so much for joining myself and our actors and puppeteers for our show and workshop today. We hope you have a lot of fun. Bye.
Bye.